What is up? Here's somebody that I really liked back in the day. Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty. We all know him from Duck Dynasty. He's the one that made Duck Calls. Anyways, I thought he passed away, but Phil Robertson, Why America is Falling Apart in the Woods with Phil, posted 3 days ago. I don't know if this is like a repost, but figured we'd check it out. Why can I not hear anything? Oh, that's why. Let's back it up, y'all. Put in reverse, Terry. Put in reverse.
So the code was a simple one. 4 sons. You either have sons, daughters, or you don't have children.
You only got those 3 options. Daggum music.
If you're shooting heavy loads, you get boys. Shoot light loads, girls, or blanks.
You got no loads. Boys, girls, or blanks, huh? Oh, it really is as simple as that, ain't it?
It happens. 4 boys in my case.
I feel like I'm not going to be able to upload this video because of the music, but we're going to do this anyway, and we'll find out. If you see this, I didn't get a strike.
You figured out. Well, to raise them down here, you turn them loose. This river, you learn to respect water.
You learn your environment. You learn to respect it because it makes you respect it. You get in a river that's too deep, you end up drowning. You get in a river that's too deep with other critters, you might get ate before you drown. There's all kinds of things that can happen out in nature.
Certain things you make sure is in this boat. In other words, tools, screwdrivers.
You don't want to get caught with your pants down. You don't want to get out somewhere. You know, they lived out in Louisiana. You might end up into a waterway. You had to get away from something, and you might have to go through where there's a fence, you know, or you might have to work on some stuff.
There's a can opener. Times are hard.
Times are hard. You might have to open a can of beans while you're out there on the river.
Sardines. Sometimes you eat sardines sitting on the bank.
Sometimes you don't, because I don't like sardines.
Or repairs.
Repairs and
boat paddle.
Whatnots.
This.
In case your motor dies, so you can do the old paddle or getting out of there.
That's made out of hard cypress.
It's not going to rot.
30 years old. You say you've had that boat paddle for 30 years. So the code that you didn't want to break if you're raising 4 boys out in the woods on the river.
It's a good paddle for water and a good paddle for...
Not many rules, but the ones that there were, wasn't but 3 main rules we had. The rules were as follows. Never disrespect your mother. Reason. Without her, you wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. She brought you forth into this world with pain, I might add. Or at least it looked that way to me when I saw my son being born. I didn't see but one of them. I didn't want to watch the other 3. Miss Kay talked me into watching one. I watched Jep. After that, I saluted women worldwide. I said, they are to be honored and respected, and that's for sure, after going through that. So 1, don't disrespect your mother. If you do, 3 licks. And I wouldn't have cared what the authorities say. 3 licks on their rump. 2nd, fighting. I don't mind you disagreeing. I don't mind you raising your voice to make a point. Go ahead and raise your voice and make the point. But if it turns into blows, meat popping, pop, pop, I move in, with my 4 sons, 3 licks for everyone involved. Bend over the bed. Pop, pop, pop. Not 300, not 10, 3 licks on their rump. It wasn't the amount of punishment, it was the principle.
It's to get their attention.
Don't break the code when it comes to getting along with one another and honoring your mother. The third thing was tearing up perfectly good equipment for no good reason. You're young and you're a little stupid in many ways. So you want to...
If you were ripping and romping and you tore something up on accident, that's a different story. But when you purposely, knowing that it's going to get tore up, you tear it up, your butt's going to get tore up.
Have a little fun, and you get out there and you take a fine cypress boat paddle and you decide you want to kill a possum with it. So the possum is there and you look around in the boat, you say, well, there's Dad's boat paddle that I'm told not to tear up perfectly good equipment. Boat paddle. I was a commercial fisherman. A paddle, you got to have it because you'll be up the creek without a paddle.
He's trying to be nice about it. What he's trying to say is don't end up shit creek without a paddle.
If someone breaks your paddle, therefore, you break whoever's trying to break your paddle. You break...
Or you break their feelings, you break their bad habit, you don't break their spirit, but you break their carelessness.
That up. Don't mess with the boat paddles. Don't mess with good equipment. Mm-hmm. So that was the code. And amazingly, when I told my children to do something, they did it. You say, with that particular code, did any of your sons, Alan, Jason, Willie Boy, and Jep, did they ever disrespect you at any time?
I'm sure they did.
You said you can't disrespect your mother, but you never said also...
Should be a given. They should know. If he's the one laying down the law saying don't disrespect your mother, they ought to know not to disrespect the man saying don't disrespect your mother.
Oh, boys, don't forget, don't disrespect me. I never said that. You know why? I didn't have to.
Exactly.
The first 3 did it. Don't disrespect your mother. It was understood there would be no disrespect between my sons and myself. I'm their father. They are to honor their father and mother.
According to the Bible.
And you'll have long life on the earth. That's one of the 10 commandments, for crying out loud. You're like, whoa. Honor your father and mother is one of the top 10 out of all the commands in the Bible. You say, one of them says, honor your father and mother, children. You'll have long life on the earth. I'm looking at America and I'm thinking, I said, man, their children are dying because of lack of discipline. All they need to be is discipline. You're not beating them half to death. It's a principle. 3 licks.
You're not abusing, you're getting their attention. It's the same principle as whenever a 2-year-old wants to touch a hot stove. You can either let them have a life lesson where they touch the hot stove and they burn their fingers or their hand or whatever, their face for all it matters. You could let them learn, oh, stove's hot, I don't touch it, that hurts. Or you could give them a similar kind of pain without the long-lasting effects on their body and teach them a lesson without permanent damage. And you can swat their hand or their butt and tell them, no, baby, you don't do that. And you don't even gotta, there's a difference between abuse and getting their attention. Whenever you're swatting their hand so they don't burn themselves on the hot stove, you're replicating the pain that could come from touching the hot stove without the permanent damage. So as they get older, there's pains that they could endure in life that you still might have to swat their butt. And it's a different It's still the same psychological development in the brain where you no baby, let's not do that. I told you not to tear up that boat paddle. Now I want to spank your butt with it. It's the same. So I get where he's coming at. It's not, you're not beating them half to death. You're just getting their attention.
With a belt on your butt, give me a that
belt on the butt is better than paddle any day of the week. Let me tell you why. Paddle, firm, it'll get your attention. But on a kid that wants to put their hands back there, you got to worry and fear that you're going to leave some lasting damage, like a broken finger bone or something like that. A belt just fold right around, keep on swatting. Paddle don't do that. Paddle, it moves what's in the way.
So we're doing it, I think there's another way we can talk it out. I taught school, and all those kids that were in school, and I saw how misbehaving they were. And I'm looking at our culture now, going through metal detectors to walk into the school.
Wouldn't need no metal detectors if kids if they learned a lesson at an early age about respect and about discipline and that swatting of the hand, don't touch the hot stove, somebody's going to get hurt. No, baby.
You said, what's their problem?
They didn't have enough discipline.
Who loved them enough to say, these things you don't do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it. I said it. I will enforce it strictly.
Mm-hmm.
Right before we came down here on the river, speaking of discipline, to show you what our culture's turned into, I pulled up at a little place where we were living at the time before we moved down here on the river, being the last 40 years. Lived uptown. It was a nightmare. I pulled up one day in my pickup truck, had my rod and reels in the back of my truck. Tackle box, rod and reels, been fishing somewhere.
Yeah.
I pull up, go in there where we're living. Well, that evening I went out there and I looked in the back of my truck. I said, where's my rod and reels? I was going to get them, take them inside the house. I looked in there, I said, what happened to my rod and reels? They're gone. Well, I did a little detective work around the little apartment complex there.
Somebody done tore up good equipment. They probably snapped them poles being silly, being dumb little kids.
And came up with the culprits. Had somebody that saw them. So I went over there to their apartment, knocked on the door. Their father answered the door. Yeah, how's it going? I said, look, your sons took my rod and reels out of the back of my truck.
Oh.
I said, I need them back.
They didn't break them, they stole them.
Were they locked? I said, no. They were just in the back of my truck. Some personal equipment that I own in the back of my truck. He said, well, what do you expect? I said, what I expect?
I expect you to do your job and teach your kids that it's not okay to steal. That this isn't a what do you expect? This is a you go in there and you teach them a lesson right now. And Phil, he's a lot nicer than I am, because I'd tell him, you either go teach them boys a lesson right now, or I'm going to teach you a lesson, and you'll be forced to teach them a lesson from them watching. That's going from getting your hand swatted to, actually touching the stove right there. You want to touch the stove and get burnt, I'm going to teach you the lesson.
To not steal. That's what I expect. I don't want your children stealing from anyone, including me. I want the rod and reels.
When a stranger's, trying to be a better role model parent than their own father is wild.
Let's come up with them.
That I don't want them stealing from anyone, including me. He put himself last. That's good character.
He's argued with me saying, well, if you don't have it under lock and key in a safe, do you actually expect people to walk by and not steal it? I said,
yes, sir. That's what I expect. Because, we don't live in the cowboy days anymore where we just go handle it like down at the OK Corral. We teach lessons to not have to go to that extent anymore.
That's what I expect. What that father was raising was children who just went around stealing
Doing what
other
they
people's
wanted.
stuff. You know why? Was it locked? Well, no. Well, then it's yours.
That's
Just
not
go
the
in
way
the
it
back
is.
of a man's truck and get what you want. If he didn't lock it, it's his fault for not.
Phil, he's a lot nicer than I am. I'm telling you, I would have that dad, if he wasn't going to go in there and teach them kids a lesson the right way, I was going to teach them a lesson. I would have, they'd have went from getting their hands swatted to touching the hot stove.
Put it under lock and key. No, it's not. No discipline. Look at America. That's one little story.
One little
You look at
story.
America, that's America. If it's not chained up, locked down, well, then you deserve to have your stuff stolen.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. Children honor their father and mother. Love your neighbor. If you love your neighbor, the last thing you would ever do is steal from him.
Mm-hmm. There's so much, the one commandment that could knock out all of the laws in this country is love your neighbor. If you would just love your neighbor.
Because you love him. They're not taught that. I'll put it in my boys. Do not steal, boys, ever. Love your neighbor. Do you think if they love one another, there would be a shootout in these major cities every night?
Mm-mm.
They don't love each other. You know why? They were never trained to love each other. They just get up in the morning. They'll steal anything that's not tied down. They just get high, get drunk, and get laid and say, I don't know whatever happened. I don't know what the problem is. It's the government's problem, and it's these Bible thumpers' problem. It's this problem and that
Man, he's spitting some facts right there.
problem. It's the cops' problem. Everybody's at fault. They're dying for lack of discipline. I'm just some guy that lives on the river telling you what will work. Take it or leave it.
I tell you what, Phil was a wise man, and I may be wrong for my points of view on some of that about, teaching the dad a lesson. Maybe that ain't the right thing to do, but in my mind, that's a better thing to do than where we're headed. Because where we're headed is we're reverting back to the cowboy days, where people would have it out like at the OK Corral whenever something didn't go right, if you were doing wrong. And so the people that, survived that era said, hey, this is the way you should act because I've seen worse and you don't want that. I want you to go through life and not have those problems. And then those kids raised more kids that passed it along, and it probably got watered down over time to where we're at now. And now it's so watered down, nobody's learned the lesson. There's a line that I like from this movie called Pure Country with George Strait, and the dad to the woman that George Strait is dating. He said something that always stuck with me. He said, what's there to say that ain't already been said? What happened was they were sitting quiet. George Strait asked him, Dusty is his name in the movie. He said, why don't you talk much? Basic. I'm just summing it up. I don't remember line for line, but he said, why don't you talk much? He said, what's there to say that ain't already been said? Which was so true for a long time. What's to say that ain't already been said? But now there's a lot that ain't been said in such a long time that everybody done forgot what it needed to be said. And they're running around acting like hooligans. They don't know a damn thing. They don't know how to act. We need to start picking up some of the slightly older days so we don't have to go back to the really older days. The really older days was like at the OK Corral. Come on.